Well, the whole thing of like AI has no lived experience. That's why everything sounds soulless. You know that, right?
Yeah. I've
You heard it. I'm not the only one that's heard this.
we've interviewed a couple philosophy professors.
I love this. This is so much fun. I wish you guys had been recorded this whole time. This is just
We
the
have
whole topic.
we have them.
Welcome to the Deeks.ai podcast, where Wake Forest innovators unpack the real-world magic of artificial intelligence through candid conversations. I'm Michael Ferrari.
I'm Ryan Scholl.
Please join us as we explore how artificial intelligence is transforming work across campus, one fascinating story at a time. Wake Forest Entrepreneurship professor Alise Raak packs this episode with mind-blowing AI teaching strategies, eye-popping Claude Code use cases, and even simple non-techie tips. She takes the listeners on a tour de force of fully integrating artificial intelligence into the teaching curriculum using her business owner's practitioner mindset. And along the way, she uncovers a secret that every hiring manager must know about a college graduate's level of AI proficiency.
Welcome to the podcast, Alise. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Ryan.
You are a brand new adjunct professor. You have a semester under your belt. Seemingly enjoyed it. Why'd you choose Wake Forest?
From a student perspective, picked Wake Forest, being local, really admired their business program here, wanted to get an MBA, and just went for it, right? I was able to do kind of the part-time program in person, loved it. It was absolutely amazing. And that was probably what got me the most hooked to higher education in general. Uh, and following my graduation from the MBA program, and just because I loved being in the academic setting, and you realize that once you leave it, you don't get it anymore, right? It's such a rare little kind of environment.
I wouldn't know. I haven't left it in 30 years. So.
Left it in 30 years. You came here as a student and never left. Graduated, just didn't leave. But yeah, so following my graduation, I stayed in touch with a few professors, started offering to do some guest lectures, staying involved with student programs and projects. And through that, eventually just got connected with the entrepreneurship department. And then when an opening came up for an adjunct professor role, I jumped at it. I couldn't say no. I was too excited to be able to be on the other side of that academic experience and that learning experience. So that's how I ended up with Wake and how I chose Wake.
So with all this great excitement, how did last semester go?
Loved it.
Oh, yeah?
Loved it.
What was your favorite part?
All of it. No, I feel like that's such a cop-out answer. But I literally just had a meeting with a former professor of mine, and he was asking me the same thing. Oh, how did it go last semester? What was your favorite part? And the reality is like all of it. I had no idea it was so fun being a professor.
What was the course you taught?
So I taught, last semester I taught seed to harvest. It was all on scaling the entrepreneurial venture.
Okay.
So it's a core curriculum course for the entrepreneurship minor here. And so, but in terms of just what were some of the things that I loved? One, I loved being just back into that academic environment, the physical space, the space where you get to talk with students and have really interesting discussions and come together for the sole purpose of learning. That is such a unique experience that just being back in that regularly, right? 3 days a week for me. I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
So I wanted to set your background because that's really important to this conversation that you came from, as I like to call it, the real world.
Yes.
And you saw what life was like outside of the walls of Wake Forest that I haven't seen in
30 years.
30 years. So you brought that perspective into the classroom. So the students get to experience your learnings from outside and bringing them in. And you presented that in your class. And so I think that's really important for listeners to understand that this is real world experience you're bringing in.
Yes. Yeah. And that I don't know if it's a requirement by any means for entrepreneurship professors, but I will say every professor within the entrepreneurship program is also an entrepreneur. They all have some sort of business venture on the side, I believe. And I just see that as kind of our responsibility to the students, that in order for us to be experts within the field, we have to be practitioners of it. And so we have to be our own founders. We have to be our own business leaders in order for us to bring forward the most applicable and relevant expertise and skills to the classroom and to our students.
So tell us a little bit about the structure of the class you taught.
Yep. So the class that I taught, the Scaling Business Ventures course, I taught it 3 days a week, and the way that I really wanted to lean into kind of that experience within the classroom is I took 2 days to cover the lectures, and then the third day, or one of the 3 days, it would be these in-class simulations. Because one of the things that is, again, unique about the entrepreneurship program is that based with the technologies available, right, to everyone today, um, it drastically lowers the barrier for people to actually do entrepreneurship. And so what was really important for me is giving students that in-class moment to, quote unquote, do entrepreneurship. Given the course that I was teaching, I had to be very mindful of how I gave them that experience. And so what I would do is that 1 day a week, we would do an in-class simulation. I called them the scale off challenges because it was a scaling business ventures course. And I would actually use AI to help create these scenarios that would put students within the driver's seat of having to make some relevant business decisions that regular founders, regular entrepreneurs would likely confront at some point within their entrepreneurship journey. And I just found that to be very helpful from just giving the students a different taste
Mhm.
of the curriculum, right? Of giving them an opportunity to put into practice the themes and the concepts and the frameworks that we had been learning throughout the week and prior to that.
So you were able to use AI to create different scale off challenges.
Mhm.
I assume you could tailor them to what you were teaching that, in that section or that week. And you can basically, I don't know, did you tailor them to the students' interests at all?
A little bit, yeah, and that was kind of some of the fun too, was, as students as the early students would trickle in before the class started, if I hadn't created the scale up challenge for the upcoming one that week, I would ask them, "Oh, what do you have planned for the summer?" Most of my students were in their senior year, so I could ask them, "What's your job? What do you have lined up for the summer?" And based off of some of their jobs that they were going to be going into or their industry, I would use that to inform the challenge that we would set up for the next simulation. So,
That must
for
have been really cool because
ex-
it really would hit the students in something they were interested in.
yeah, like one student, for example, I knew she was going into medical sales. And so I made one of the simulations tied to that. It was for a startup within the medical sales field, right? And so it was kind of just a fun way to just make it a little bit more relevant and
Mhm.
hopefully resonant for students.
And were the students, um, were they encouraged? Are they allowed? Are they banned to use AI during these challenges?
Not at all. So they were not banned at all. They were very, very encouraged.
Okay.
I know that I'm on the far extreme of this, but my policy within the class last semester and this upcoming semester is they can use AI for anything within the course except the exams. That's paper and pencil.
I'm sorry, what?
Except for the exams, paper and pencil. I'm bringing
Paper
a
and pencil. Right.
pencil, which was a lot to grade, but in my opinion, it was worth it. Um, and then also, they were not allowed to create fake data. So that was the other thing, is just putting kind of that extra little layer there. Um, but for entrepreneurs in general, like within the practice of entrepreneurship, AI is hands down one of the most useful and, you know, critical tools to be successful. It really, in my opinion, levels the playing field for smaller startups to be able to hit way above
Mm,
their weight class,
of course.
and to compete in ways that they hadn't been able to because AI has so much capabilities that can really help accelerate their startup experience.
So, as part of the education of these students, when they go out in the real world, they're going to have to use artificial intelligence. And so, your job is to prepare them.
Correct. Correct. And I wanted to give them the space to experiment and try and apply AI with the same level of, restriction that any person in the outside world would have. And that's not to say that, in every business, every person within that business has full autonomy to use AI in all of their work. But when you're thinking about entrepreneurs or making the rules and thinking about how they can use technology to create a competitive advantage, to stand out, and to be more successful, that's where I was like, I want my students to have that same level of freedom and agency.
So in an AI forward class, why did you go back to pen and paper assessments?
Because there still needed to be an element of, are you actually learning this information? Because I didn't want it to be that they were, you know, g- giving AI the learning experience that they were paying to have here at Wake, right? I didn't want them. I can't think of the word, but it's just one. I didn't want them to like offload that responsibility over to AI to learn for them.
So
And
you thought this was a more fair way to assess their knowledge?
their knowledge of it, making sure that it wasn't just that they were using AI to coast through the semester and coast through the work, but actually using AI to enhance and augment their work and better learn the principles. And so that's why I made the test pencil and paper, was because they couldn't use AI. They had to write out the answers themselves. They had to demonstrate that they had studied, that retained enough information to figure out how to learn the core concepts and the learning objectives I had set out in the course.
So that's your current AI policy. You said when you do this again, you're going to do a different AI policy. Explain that.
Well, so it will be the same AI policy. The addition there. So my past policy was just nothing except the exams,
Hmm.
right? They could use anything but for the exam. Now, what I am doing differently this next semester that I didn't do last semester is that while I've laid out, you know, my policy on AI use in the classroom and for their learning, I'm having them write out their own policy of how they want to use AI in the classroom and in our course. So I created this workshop, that they'll be doing within the first week, in class workshop that we'll do within the first week, in which they will have to reflect upon what role they want AI to play within their own coursework and play within their own learning experience within our semester, and write it out. And they're going to have to reflect upon where they want it to show up, why they want it in those instances, what are they not, what are the limits that they're going to impose, and how are they going to hold themselves accountable to maintaining and upholding those limits. I just think that it's a very smart exercise to, one, put responsibility back onto the students, not treat them as kids, right? Not saying that we
Hmm.
get to dictate their usage. I think it's very important that they have the right to say how they want it to show up in their own learning experience, but then also making sure and giving me visibility on kind of what every student's personal threshold is of how they want to use it. Um, and so that way I can be more sensitive to the various perspectives and opinions on, AI's role within education.
Now, is that approach informed by like you seeing pretty varying like personal choices, I guess, among your students with how they view and want to utilize AI?
Somewhat. So partially, yes. One of the things that I required for my students last semester is every week well, I'll take a step back and provide a little context. Because I'm a practitioner, right? Because I have a business on the side, the professorship right now that I have is not my only gig. One of the things that shocked me when I first started teaching last semester was how little students used AI. And what made me very nervous was I taught primarily seniors, so they were going to be graduating. And I knew that the outside expectation was that college graduates were basically AI native. there was this assumption that, oh, because you're 21, because you're 22, you know AI better than anybody, right? There's this assumption that they are the early adopters and they're the ones who are going to come in and steal everyone's jobs because they know AI.
Mm.
And so when I saw that gap of, what students actually knew and how they used AI compared to the expectations and the assumptions that hiring managers, business leaders, business owners, that they had, they were set up to fail, candidly, in my opinion. Now, I think, we're still so much in flux and in a point of transition that they were going to be fine, even if they hadn't been strong AI users. I really do think like everyone's still within that learning curve right now. But it just seemed like an extra strike against them in a job market that was already really hard, given AI's impact to a lot of the hiring.
That's something we struggle with all the time in higher education. What level of AI do the students need to have coming out of college?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting hearing you say that from the outside world.
Yeah. Well, and I also, because I love research, candidly. And so I didn't want to, that was my initial assumption, was seeing that gap. And so that I did. I went to people within my network. I asked people on LinkedIn. I wanted to hear from others. Is it just me that's coming forward with this assumption? Or is it true? And without prompting, overwhelmingly, the response I got was from people on the outside world throughout my network. Oh, yeah, well, I assume they know how to do this, this, and this. I don't expect them to be able to, code, or vibe code, but like, sure, they know how to do agents. They definitely know it better than I do. And it was just such an eye-opening moment of, oh my goodness. And so I felt a huge responsibility to my student and their success of saying, like, I owe you the opportunity to explore and use AI in what would be considered a professional setting beyond just, hey, AI, make me my meal plan. ChatGPT, what workout should I do? That's a different.
Hey, it was working. You can't judge me. It's been working. So
Okay,
Okay, Michael. Okay, Michael. What's your humble brag? Come on.
I'm not bragging at all. I'm just sharing my experience.
You want to talk about your AI fitness coach.
Yeah.
Eventually I will. But on the subject of hiring managers, because I've been talking to people in that role and stuff, and so I was thinking of it myself. So you think your assumption is that hiring managers, they would view it more a strike against someone coming into the workforce who doesn't have a lot of experience with AI, opposed to someone who kind of really came up in the weeds in the struggle that Ryan and I always talked about, and then viewing them as like, man, if we give them this AI tool, which to me sounds easier of the two, like how much better could they be? And like the analogy I was thinking about is a lot of baseball, like some of the greatest baseball players we've ever seen. You look at like someone like Mariano Rivera, the guy grew up with a milk carton as a baseball glove, and then, he became a legend. So I just think that that's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, and it is true when you were talking about the, does it give them a leg up in that hiring process? If a hiring manager is looking at essentially two equal candidates, same level of experience, same years of experience, more or less, two students fresh out of college, but one had the ability to say, oh, yes, I know how to use AI. Here's how I've used AI in a kind of business forward sense. That person is going to get the role over the person.
And so you saw this gap, and then you took an innovative approach to help solve this literacy fluency gap with your students.
Yes. Yeah. So the approach that I had, aside from just general encouragement of using AI within the classroom and in those simulations, they would be paired in kind of random groups, right? Or assigned random groups for those simulations. And so I think there was a lot of peer-to-peer learning that happened in those moments as it related to AI usage. But one of the things that I required for my students as that contributed to their participation grade was every week I would have an AI challenge on Canvas that they had to go in and complete if they wanted credit for that week. And it was honestly very fundamental stuff, right? Because a lot of people, and I'm trying to put on kind of my learner's
Mhm.
mindset here, for people who are starting to learn AI or approaching it for the first time, knowing where to start is one of the hardest parts. And so, you kind of stumble your way around in the dark to figure out, well,
Mhm.
what do I need to do? What do I learn first? What do I learn second? What do I learn after I learn those first two things? And so I wanted to provide my students a pathway,
Yeah.
right? To just give them some of the fundamentals. And so I would pose challenges to them every week. One week it was they had to create a markdown file. Now, I didn't explain to them what a markdown file was.
Mm.
I didn't tell them how they were going to use it or how it was used. I just said that they had to create a markdown, because I wanted them to have that experience without having to fumble around and come across it
Mm.
and learn it organically. I wanted them to know what a markdown file was. I wanted them to have to do their own little
So
self-auditing.
these were m simple micro challenges each week that built on each other, and as they went class by class or week by week, they would build their fluency just by these little baby
Just
steps.
by these little baby steps. So by the end, the challenges were, because we can use Gemini through Wake Forest.
Mhm.
By the end, the challenges were they had to create custom gems, because even that level of AI fluency is a way to stand out
Mhm.
now. Is now you are, I don't have specific numbers, but in my opinion, knowing how to create custom gems, custom GPTs, agents in Claude, skills in Claude, what have you, that's automatically going to put you in the top 20% of users. And I wanted my students to be in the ideally top 5 to 10%, but at the very least at the top 20% of users, so that when they went into their next role, they had experience. They might not do it often, but if someone asked them to do it, they would at least have that little grain of familiarity of, wait, I've done this before. I can go back.
You had your students go beyond the theoretical and actually go into the practitioner world with an assignment where they actually had to build a business and make some money?
That'll be this next
Oh,
semester.
that's coming up.
Yeah. That's going to be this next semester.
Are you willing to share the details?
Absolutely. I actually just finished the syllabus, so I'm super excited about it. So this next semester, I'll be teaching evidence-based entrepreneurship, which is essentially product market fit, which is another fancy way of just saying you do a ton of consumer research before you actually launch and develop and launch a new product. And one of the things that is inherently true for entrepreneurs and anyone who has ever tried to sell something and make some money, you can put as much strategy on paper as you want. You can design as many prototypes as you want, but you don't have product market fit until somebody buys it. Right. And so that's kind of, in my opinion, the best way to create product market fit is if someone will be like, oh, yeah, this is great. Here's my money. And
Are we making a lot of money from this podcast, Michael?
millions, right?
I don't handle the finances. Only you would know
Oh, I
that.
thought you did.
No, not nope.
Oh,
Oh, all right.
I guess we're not making much money.
Yeah.
So we would fail your class.
No. Well, so here's the thing, because I also appreciate not everyone is going to
Okay.
truly embrace the idea of making their own money in my class.
So they have to actually make some money.
It's not required.
Okay.
They can make some money. So the project that I have them doing is they develop a product or a product concept at the start of the semester, go through 4 rounds of different forms of consumer research. After each round, they have to iterate on the product in order to better fit it towards the consumer information they learned. They have to create a business plan at the end to see if it's a viable opportunity. And then at the end of the semester, they present basically, is this product ready for launch? Is it, do we need to keep iterating, or are we so far like there's no market for this candidate, right? Um, that's kind of the overall layout of the
Mhm.
course itself. The final, there's kind of 2 pathways or 2 streams that a student can ride that river. One is to be the student. And so you go through all of those steps. You go through all of the work to create an imaginary product at the end that has more or less, it either has product market fit, it doesn't have product market fit. You check the box, you're still eligible for an A. There's no, you've gone through the course, right? You've learned what you need to learn. You've done what you need to do. Great job. Alternatively, and I know this won't resonate with every student, but for those who are interested, if they want to have the real world experience of what it's like to be an entrepreneur looking for product market fit, they have the opportunity to develop a service rather than a product at the front end. So that way it can be executed immediately, right? And they can go through the path of actually trying to earn money while going through the course and everything, the activities, the exercises, the application. If they earn $4,000 by the end of the semester, then their final presentation, their final project is a lot, I don't want to call it easier, but it's a lot more reflective upon their own personal experience rather than a give me all of the, the structure, give me your value proposition, give me your elevator pitch, give me your product description, give me your feature list, give me your, so it's a lot less of here are all the checkbox items that I want you to give me as part of your final presentation. It's more of a reflect upon what you created, reflect upon the people who purchased it, reflect upon what you learned, and reflect and what advice would you give someone else. So it's a very different kind of outcome. Plus, they also get to keep it, right? So if they earn the money, they get to keep it. This semester, given the course that I'll be teaching on product market fit or evidence-based entrepreneurship, one of the core projects that they'll have to do is they have to interview 50 people as part of this consumer research course. I do not want to tempt anybody or leave it to any form of ambiguity or gray area as to whether or not all of those interviews have to be with humans or personas or personalities, right? Or avatars. I wanted to be crystal clear. No, these have to be humans. And so the addition to the policy I had was that they are not allowed to fabricate any of the research or data. So that was the addition.
Yeah. So those are the foundations and basic concepts for startups, and that the students are really getting that kind of railroad track of this is how you do it and follow the path. What role does artificial intelligence play in changing that game? Does it just accelerate their process? Does it allow them access to more, potential fake customers? How does that change what they could produce?
Yeah. So my stance on AI and the way that I like to think about it is I very much try to use AI to accomplish more than what I would have been able to do on my own. And so
So you're expanding those capabilities.
That's the frame that I think of when it comes to bringing AI and encouraging AI use within the classroom or among the students, is I want to impart on them that idea of just having them consistently think through that question. How can I use AI to do more than I would have been able to do on my own? And so when it comes to this this project that they'll be doing, the semester-long experiential project that they're going to be doing, I want them and I encourage them to use AI, and I will show them and give them examples in the classroom. Just they can take it or leave it based off of their own personal AI learning policies that they work on at the beginning of the semester. I want them to be able to create a better, prototype when it comes time to do the concept and product feature interviews, which is part of their consumer research. I want them to be able to create better visuals, better branding, better things that, better materials that they wouldn't necessarily have been able to create efficiently ahead of otherwise if they weren't using AI. Now, that's not to say for those who don't want to use AI, they're in trouble. No, not at all. There's a million ways to create prototypes, right? We did it without AI a gajillion times. But yeah, so I want them to use AI for this project to help kind of expand what they're capable of doing. And even if it is one of those things where AI helps them write a better jobs to be done statement, a more articulate elevator pitch that's really customized to their target audience, I want them to use that because that's going to help them create better output.
I'd be really interested to see at the end of the semester the students who choose to use less AI, if they,
So, yeah,
for for
same.
whatever reason, personal authenticity, or they just want to learn the concepts on their own, versus the students who use AI more heavily. If there's a difference in that final outcome and that product, and for just a clear metric, does one make more money than the other
hmm
potentially? It'd be so. Next semester you can come back and tell us all about that
Yeah,
part. Yeah.
excellent. I will happily take this a second time around. That's my measure of success, right? You guys saying, "Hey, come back again." Well,
Yeah,
that's
I'm also curious because something I noticed a lot lately, whether it's YouTube videos or marketing on a project, a commercial, I'm seeing a lot of either people like say audiences calling out something that uses AI, or companies now say like, and as always, we don't use AI in anything we do. Is that going to be an aspect that would be covered? Because I guess maybe it would depend on the audience, but depending on what they use AI for, that in and of itself might kind of turn some people off, I suppose.
yeah. I'm trying to. I haven't, full transparency. I haven't really considered that angle of it, of how to bring that perspective into the classroom. I
Mm,
like it because I do want to represent kind of all sides of the debate, right? And
yeah.
all kind of all the considerations across the spectrum. Hey, caution, just because I let you use it here doesn't mean that when you're in the business world, when you're out in the field, that you do actually have full autonomy. Always respect the rules that are in place, right? Follow the guidelines. Um, when I do that AI workshop, one of the things that I'm going to require my students look at prior to joining is Anthropic's materials when it comes to AI use within education. They have a lot of really good materials, I think, that really prompt people to think about their personal AI policies of when is it okay, when is it not okay for the
Yeah.
individual. And I think the practice there, the skill or the virtue that I really want to hone, and I think that their resources do a good job, is putting people in the position of being able to know what integrity looks like for AI usage and AI application, and realizing that just because they use AI doesn't mean that they have to use it for all things, and they should never use it to be unethical, right? No different than what we preach within Wake Forest in general.
Yeah.
We want best use we want great users, and we want people who are very smart and wise and mindful users making decisions on behalf of themselves, their team, and eventually their companies. So maybe it would be good for me to also present that as just like, oh, and as a reminder, just because I say it's okay, when you're out in the real world, make sure that you're not violating any usage rule for other
Yeah.
classes, for other businesses, for internships, what have you.
You mentioned Anthropic. How are you dealing with students who want to use different models, or the equity issue of students who may use paid models versus free models? Are you requiring one model over another, or just letting students use what they want and seeing maybe potentially different outputs from students?
Yeah. So in the one, I leave it up to them. The only model I know that students have access to that has at least a little bit above basic features is Gemini. And so whenever I talk about creating something through I will always lead with Gemini because I know that that's the most accessible for students. That said, I am also a big fan of the free version of ChatGPT, of Claude. Yes, the paid does give more access, right? And it does unlock higher models and more utilization. But, honestly, this is kind of, as an entrepreneur myself, yes, at this point, do I pay for subscriptions? Yes, because I use them in my business, right? But before I was at the point of using them, I had 3 different free accounts. So that way, when I ran into my token limit on one, I could flip to the other and keep working. And so that's one of those things where I think there is a level of resourcefulness that, only having access to the free accounts can actually instill in someone. But I don't want to be in the role of putting anyone at a disadvantage because they're not choosing to pay for AI. And again, that's just one of the scenarios within kind of how I'm trying to make sure this course can exist. I want to make sure that this course, the one that I'm creating this next semester, is phenomenal for students who choose not to use AI at all.
Yeah.
Right? I don't require anyone in my class this next semester when they're creating their AI policies to use AI. They can 100% write within their policy, I refuse to use it for anything within this classroom. And so I think it's really important that as a professor, if I want to encourage my students to use AI, or at least give them the freedom to use AI, then I also need to make sure that there's still a very fair and equitable, a wonderful in-class experience for the students who choose not to.
It'll be great to see those personal AI policies and how that compares with the students' feedback at the end of the class about their learning experience.
Well, and one of the things I'm going to do, which I just love tracking trends, right? Like tracking changes in behavior. And so their AI policy at the front end, I'm going to tell them, this is a living document. I'm not going to force anyone to stick with this, even though I have them consider and write out how they will keep themselves accountable. I am not going to police this, and I want to encourage them to be dynamic so that if they're going throughout the semester and they start using AI a little bit more and they're okay with it, and it actually starts, violating, in quotation marks, their AI policy, but not mine, they're allowed to change it. They're allowed to change their minds. They're allowed to change their opinions and their approaches because I want them to also develop that skill of being okay with changing your mind as new information arises, as new technologies become unlocked, as experiences and demands evolve. So yeah, so as part of that, at the end of the semester, I'm gonna go through some form of an exercise or a reflection memo or something in which they will have to look back at what their original policy was and either rewrite it to by the end of the semester, I realized I actually could find real benefit in using AI for these specific things. So my opinion has changed on how I want to be using it moving forward. Then we have a really good set of information and data to show kind of that evolution. If there is, that's the fun of it. We don't know what the answer is going to be.
Yeah, if students would be willing, I think it also would be pretty interesting too. Say for some students who do or don't make money, how much did you spend on AI tools? Like, did you spend $1,000 on all these different tools, but you didn't make that much? That would be very fascinating to see.
I mean, if anyone's spending $1,000 a student on AI tools in 4 months, that'll be a whole other conversation. And didn't make any money.
But if they made
profitable.
$20,000, then maybe it's kind of like, all right.
It's all about the return on investment.
You know what, though? That does make me think maybe I should change it from 4,000 in revenue to 4,000 in profit.
Yeah.
Hey, look, real time. We're changing the course up.
I love it. It's great. See, this is the nature of the course. You got
Welcome to the Deeks.ai course design service.
be profitable. And so one of the things that you had said, like, what are some additional uses of how I use AI within my teaching? Right. So much of it has been around like, how do I use AI? Have my students use AI in the classroom? But it's like, how do I use it specifically to create better lectures, presentations, material, all that stuff? And one of the things, well, I guess there's kind of a whole line here. Now, one of the reasons why I'm very open and lenient when it comes to my personal AI policy for the classroom is because I 100% use it as a professor to create the lessons and the learning experiences for my students beyond just the simulation, right? Beyond the scale off challenges. I very much used it to, well, to do fundamental things of like finding very course relevant media. I really believe a lot in just like learning via timely articles, YouTube videos, podcasts, whatever.
Well, this is such a evolving area of study that there's no, other than the original theory of artificial intelligence, everything is brand new.
Yeah.
And the information is shifting hourly.
Yeah. And so being able to pull in more resources because things are evolving so quickly, right? But one of the things that I was kind of the most proud of um, in business, and that's like, big use of the business term that represents a ton of things. There is a very heavy male presence, right? So like case studies, for example. Now, I don't have actual data behind this by any means, but just from my personal experience, when I'm looking at case studies, either to bring into the classroom or when I was a student, a lot of them spotlight companies that were founded by men.
Mhm.
Nothing against that. I love it. I love founders and I love great companies, all that stuff. But over half my class was female this past semester. And as a female, it does make a difference when you hear about other women who are founding companies. And so I used AI a lot to help me find companies that were founded by females and finding good stories about female founded companies. Because they just don't seem to be as present and readily available in the Google searches as male companies, male founded companies and case studies. So it gave me an opportunity to kind of bring in founder groups or founder segments that aren't the norm within kind of use cases, examples, case studies, what have you. I could bring in examples from founders that represented a lot of different groups and segments. And to be honest, actually, I had several female students last semester at the end tell me that they really appreciated it, that they really appreciated seeing, female founded companies featured rather than just always defaulting to Warby Parker, always defaulting, which I use them too, sometimes anything as Warby Parker, but using them beyond just kind of the typical business case studies. And that's I'm also looking for it. Like
Okay.
I don't like when I'm using ChatGPT, for example, to try to find some of these companies, I'm specifically asking, provide a list of female founded companies.
But it's allowing you to do more of a niche search.
Yes. In a more natural language way of looking for it, right? And I feel like this is almost like a rabbit hole you and I have not gone down yet, which amazes me. How do we keep finding these circles? But when it comes to, like you said, the integrity of the data set, right? And how that influences what comes up if you Google or if you input, show me a picture of a CEO. There has been some really good literature, and I actually saw this report yesterday. It was put out by UN Women, I think, and it focused specifically on gender biases in AI generated marketing and advertising. I was interested in it because it does kind of align with what I do for my outside business, is a lot of that's within marketing. And so I found it really interesting, like digging into this report because they were talking about that gap between, the stereotypical woman, AI generated picture of a female or the stereotype. And so when I was kind of going through it and digging into it, it really resonated with me that these unconscious biases that we know are within the models are getting better. There is an evolution. They are becoming more aware. Now, are they perfect? No, not at all. And then on top of that, we as the users also carry our own biases. And so what I've been trying to be more mindful of as I'm preparing this next semester is figuring out what are the prompts, what are the ways that I can be more equitable and more representative and more inclusive within my content. Um, reflect more perspectives, reflect, different looking founders, right? Founders with different past experiences. Um, just showing kind of a broader range. So that way students can hopefully see themselves at some point within the semester, um, or seeing groups that they identify with represented within entrepreneurship, and then letting that create that confidence within them to go out and possibly start their own business. But that's they're interested. And on top of that, because again, it's like, well, how do I then also turn that into like a teaching tool? Um, so then, because I love doing this type of thing, I took every report I could find, some of the best practices that they recommended and linked to, uploaded all of those PDF files into Claude and ChatGPT. But I'll use Claude as the example, uploaded it into Claude and told Claude to create a skill that will always run in the background now to look for ways in which I can create any of my teaching materials this next semester, find ways to make them more inclusive or equally representative of different groups. So now as I work through my curriculum and start creating my presentations, I've got a little background agent that's keeping an eye on it for me, of helping me find ways to make it more inclusive.
So you're gonna light the powder keg here because you talked about agents, and I know you've created a bunch of them,
I like agents.
and you're a heavy user of Claude in that sense. And from a non-technical background, you just started creating all these cool agents. Can you tell us a couple more of them, maybe?
Oh yeah. So yes, I have zero technical background. Zero.
You've
Okay.
mentioned that.
Zero. This is truly just me sitting in front of a computer one day and be like, I'm gonna figure this out. And so I did. I had the time to do it. That's, I think, is a huge factor that people don't talk about, is like how much time it does take.
There's a learning curve.
There is a huge learning curve. And because we're all in it right now, no one can map it. So, right? No one can sit there and say, like, oh, yeah, it's going to take 6 weeks, but then you'll learn it all. No, like, no one knows. And it's all changing so much. We're still all learning. It took me a while. I was ChatGPT first. And it took me a while to get to the point of being brave enough to try Claude, because I had always heard vibe coding. You gotta learn vibe coding. And I didn't know what vibe coding was, but gotta learn vibe coding. Claude's the only one to use. You gotta go do that. So one day I finally am like, okay, I can't avoid it any longer. I need to go and learn how to use Claude. And so I started. Like, I have no way of saying like, oh, it was beautiful. It was elegant. I got it right the first time. No, like, what I did is I Googled, candidly, I Googled, like, give me like a Claude prompt, a Claude Code prompt. And I found some influencer who I absolutely adore, Allie K. Miller. If you have not followed her stuff.
Number one voice in AI business, right?
Oh, gosh, she's so good. She's so good. I'm a complete fangirl. But I came across one of her videos, and it was just like, she had just she was doing some YouTube demo, and you could see her screen, and she like types in some prompt and it's going. And I paused the video, I zoomed in, took a screenshot of her screen so I could see what the prompt was. And I took that screenshot, uploaded it into Claude, and said, like, write out the prompt that you see here, then follow it, or something like that. And that was how I saw how it worked.
Okay.
And that was helpful. There's still a lot that kind of went into continuing to evolve and hopefully get a little better at it. But that was kind of the way that I got brave enough to at least know how to create an agent. Kind of. Like, even now, I'm not entirely sure what defines an agent versus skill versus something else in Claude. I've asked Claude millions of times. It can't answer that question. I need these systems to have a better level of self-awareness.
So what kind of things have you created? Like what has Claude done for you now?
And so, thank you. That was a very long-winded way of teeing up and answering your original question. But that got me to the point where I started thinking about, okay, I don't know how to work this system. And so when it comes to working the system, I need tools that can work the system on my behalf. And so that became my area of focus. But what became important to me was figuring out how to create the tools and the agents that actually enabled me to create more tools and more agents and use the system, use Claude in a way that I wouldn't have been able to use it otherwise. And so a lot of the different types of agents or skills that I have developed in Claude, they're ones that just make my usage more effective. For example, this is what you're getting at. For example, the one that I use the most is my prompt architect. And I've told you about architect before, haven't I?
Well, you may have told me, but you haven't told our listeners.
I haven't told the listeners.
No.
So the prompt architect, it takes whatever randomness I am saying, and I will just talk. And then it will take my ramblings and turn it into a very good prompt. And then that's what I submit. Because very early on, back in the day when it was all about prompt engineering, I realized very quickly I'm never going to get anywhere if I am trying to engineer and perfectly format prompts every single time I want to start an engagement here. I need something that's going to write it for me. And so that's what I did, is I created something to write it for me. So prompt architect has definitely been my number one. It completely changed the way in which I use AI. Now ever since then, the results I've gotten back have just been better. So that was probably my main one. And then another one that I created more recently that I did share with you, but I haven't obviously shared with the listeners, is watch and learn. My watch and learn command, this guy on Claude, well, let me take a step. The genesis of it is because I kept hearing, like, treat Claude like, a new employee at your company. You have to show it and train it just like you would a new employee at your company. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's great. But if I had a new employee in my company, I would be sitting at my computer and I would be showing them how to do things. I wouldn't be like writing out or dictating out instructions and then telling them to go do it. Like I would be like, oh, let me show you how I do this so you know how to do it. And so that's why I created Watch and Learn. It was, I tell Claude, watch and learn, I'm going to teach you something new. And then I go through the steps of like, okay, I'm going to show you how to automate pulling these reports for me. Here's what I do. And I just go through it. I do it, right? I do it one time on the computer. I'll dictate what I'm doing on Whisperflow. So I capture that, or through Notion, whatever one. I just need some sort of transcript. And then after I'm done, I say, okay, I'm done. Here's my transcript. Turn this into a documented workflow that can, and then turn that into a skill, an automated workflow, an agent, whatever it is that I was wanting it to follow as automated process. And it does.
So again, you have a deep technical background, right?
No, zero background.
So you were able to make this whole watch me learn,
Yeah.
This skill agent, whatever you say, and you're just talking to Claude and it's doing this for you.
And the way that, because all I did is I told Claude, okay, I want something that will let me show you what I'm doing on my computer and you learn it. And so Claude, through the powers of Claude, came back with an okay idea, right? We tried it once, it failed. I ran out of tokens, so I had to wait 3 hours before I could try it again. But through a couple of practice rounds, we got to the point where Claude was taking a screenshot every 3 seconds once I told it to start. And so it would capture a series of screenshots so that it could compare what changed from one to the next to the next. And then match that with the transcript that I would upload to it. And it was able then to document the process. And so the way that I've been able to check it is once I go through the process, watch and learn, we're going to do this. At the end, I ask it, okay, give me your process, write out the process for me. And then it goes through and it writes out the whole process for me. And I can go through and be like, oh, okay, you got this part. Oh, you missed this part. It must have been between screenshots, that type of thing. But then once that process is documented, I just turn it around and be like, turn this into an automated workflow, run this, once a week, run this, schedule it.
This is where if it was a video, you'd see me doing the mind blown emoji,
The
right?
mind-blowing
Yeah.
emoji. I
It's very impressive. Very, very impressive.
want meta uses of AI. I don't want.
And I think that's a great point right there that most people don't think about is using the tool to teach you how to do something and asking, whichever tool it is, help me do this. I don't understand. How can I do it? Well, just ask it
Yeah.
and have the conversation. It's not a one shot. It's you go back and forth and you develop like you said, you failed the first time. And that's entrepreneurship 101, right?
Yeah.
You failed and then you went back and you had the conversation and you iterated and you continued and you improved on it. And I think that's one of the most valuable lessons right there. It's fantastic.
I got
Oh,
another one.
Okay. Go for it.
But I made a custom GPT of the director of our department. Like this one. Because now I get to run anything by my custom GPT before I take it to the director of our department.
How did you create that? What information did you use?
Take all the publicly available information. Tell you, everybody's got a footprint. Everybody's got an online profile. You get in there, you tell ChatGPT to like pull all this stuff together, pull the academic articles, pull the books, pull the publication, pull all of it,
So
even the videos.
you've run ideas by your custom GPT?
Yeah.
And then have you been more prepared when you've gone and talked to the director?
Name is Dan Cohen GPT.
I'm sure Dan is going to be fascinated. He's going to be fascinated by that.
Publicly available information. I worked with what he had out there already, and I created a custom GPT. So that way I can run things by that before I take it to the real human.
Well, I'm sure he probably appreciates that because you're going to him with better ideas.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And more aligned with kind of what I know is inherently important to his,
I'd be interested if you shared that custom GPT with him and got his thoughts. Yeah, see if it actually aligns.
yeah. He and I are
And,
important.
and I would like to announce a new project I will be working on where you can then have my AI tool totally muddy your internet footprint with just a load of false information.
Yes.
Oh
Oh, wow. We're really working together today. I love it. That's good.
So I'm curious if once you got used to using these tools, and you got more comfortable with Claude and whatever else tool, did you then start to see where the areas where you did have expertise and your knowledge and all that, could you tell that was paying off for you and then it was easier to get what you wanted?
Yes. Did you guys see the article recently around Ford hiring back like 150 engineers?
I feel like I've seen that about quite a few companies.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of
honestly.
companies. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, there was one about Ford. Maybe it was earlier this week or late last week. And it was basically like Ford acknowledging, hey, we went a little too far trying to use AI for a lot of things that actually we still need humans for. And not just humans, like we need expert humans. And so they ended up doing a big round of hiring back a lot of the people they had let go, or roles that they had eliminated. And so I think that level of expertise is so critical, right? I think like my expertise is in marketing, innovation, and business strategy. That's kind of where I've spent my time over the past 15 plus years, really kind of honing my skill set. And absolutely, like there are times like you need to know what to ask for, and you need to have an idea. I find that the outputs I get from Claude are still significantly better if I convey some of my own expertise first
Mhm.
by putting
Yeah.
it into the prompt rather than just saying, hey, Claude, you're a, business strategist who leads a company and blah, blah, blah in this industry, in this field. What would you do in this situation? Like, I do think that there's still some very real overconfidence that comes back in some of those answers that are still, while the content is much too shallow for really any rigorous or critical thinking. Now, when it comes to kind of like how to balance that within the classroom, within education, trying to teach students these early skills, right? Because again, if I'm relying and using my own earned expertise, I want to make sure that I'm not taking that away from students, right? Giving them the opportunity to learn hard things, hard ways, right? Friction, with mistakes, with imperfections. And so I don't want to make it an easy learning experience for them by any means. Um, I want to make sure that students are still learning a level of expertise, even if it is AI assisted, right? And so, like, I want them to be smart business leaders. I want this course to teach them how to do really strong and good consumer research. And so that means that they're going to have to learn it the hard way, even if it is AI assisted, to cover some of to help them through or elevate some of the things that aren't part of the core learning objectives.
Let me help you out here in a little bit to answer Michael's question. Some of the research coming out of the AI labs and places that are researching productivity on the AI side, not necessarily learning, but the productivity, is the graph is exponential, where marginal performers will increase their productivity at a certain level, but the high performers, the experts, their increase in productivity is much greater because they already have that expertise, and
Mhm.
so the AI tools are amplifying that even more than the low performers. So to bring it back to education now, if we can get our students to be higher experts in these certain fields, their
Yeah.
output will be even greater when paired with the tools.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd certainly agree with that. I think there's real benefit of like using AI, not separating AI versus one's ability to learn, but
Mhm.
thinking about how do they intrinsically work together in a way that amplifies and enables the individual to be more successful.
Mhm.
Um, because yeah, like going back to what you were asking, Michael, I think that a lot of my success with AI has come from the fact that I do have a base level of expertise within my current field, right? I do know marketing, I do know business strategy, I do know innovation and product development. And so that enables me to create really cool things for like my other
Yeah.
business through that I then get to bring back into the classroom as a way to help give students that same type of experience or opportunities to learn firsthand on certain stuff. And so I don't want to shortchange students at all because I do think that expertise, having that base level expertise, is so critical if you want to use AI well.
Yeah.
You have to know
Yeah.
your.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I always laugh when I like hear like on like vibe coders and stuff because I like to imagine like I just laugh thinking about how many of the dumbest little mistakes AI has made where like if you don't know anything about like there's been times where it was just missing literally one character in the code. And I just, just thinking about like that type of thing where if you don't know anything about something and you're working with it, how many times did like one little thing trip you up? So,
Yeah.
no, that's
Well, I
interesting
think
though.
to an extent because, like in this example, I have no technical background, right? And so I use you know alternative AI to help kind of verify or strengthen or find the blind spot that I don't even know to ask for because I don't know what. But
Yeah.
I do see it as a responsible usage is
Yeah.
to, you know, take accountability and ownership of whatever I generate. And so in order to feel confident in what I'm creating, I need to know the best I can that it is good and not just confident. And then the other thing that I was just going to throw out there, because I do think about this, like the responsibility of professors and what we owe to our students. For me, at least, everyone has the autonomy and agency to make that decision for themselves. For me, the presence of AI certainly can be threatening to our expertise, right? The level of the material that I am teaching, the actual information that I'm teaching to my students, 100% available online. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm bringing some new, novel, proprietary, information to my students. I'm teaching them important things, but candidly, they wouldn't even need AI. They could just go and watch YouTube videos and learn what I'm teaching them over the course of this.
Okay, I'm going to really push back here
Why?
because I've had this conversation a lot. I'm going to give you credit where I don't think you even realize it. Yes, the information may be available.
You gotta let me
My bad. Go ahead.
finish my
Go ahead.
because that's the reality, is that I do believe that information has already been fully democratized.
Mhm.
Intelligence is now being democratized via AI, right? I will never, ever, ever be able to one-on-one for every concept that I teach in my classroom, be able to customize and talk about that learning concept in a specific way. Like if someone would learn better if I explained it all through Taylor Swift lyrics, I would not be able to do that, but AI can. Okay. So like I recognize that when it comes to AI, it has a leg up on me in regards to creating very custom learning ways of learning for students, coming up with that content or reframing existing content. So that way it is easier for students to follow along and what's going to resonate, make most sense. I see that as AI's advantage. So as a business person, you have to think about, okay, well, what's my competitive advantage? If I'm a professor, rather than competing over the knowledge and the intelligence, because I know I can't win as it relates to customizing it, for me, the competitive advantage I can create over AI is that in-person experience. And so as I was designing my syllabus and my curriculum for this next semester, I put a huge amount of emphasis and focus on the in-classroom experience rather than the specific tenets of knowledge that I will be imparting. Yes, we will be covering all of those imperatives, right? We will be covering the knowledge set. But like, for me, I want to be so good. I want that classroom experience to be so good that college students can't wait to wake up for that 9 a.m. Monday class, or because it's Wake Forest, that Friday 9 a.m. class, right? Like,
That's got to be a really good class.
maybe for that type of experience,
Mhm.
designing for that type of in-person experience, that's how I'm going to win. That's how I'm going to make sure that students are like, yes, please.
So
Like,
your value
well,
proposition is to be that resource, be that coach and that mentor.
be the in-person, create the in-person environment. It's not all on me. A lot of the environment and the best ways to help students learn is through peer discussion, right? Is from hearing guest speakers, from doing activities and workshops that have nothing to do with me. I'm just the one facilitating that. I'm the one that's creating and crafting and curating that experience for them. So that way they can learn what they need to learn in a way that is just so much better than sitting in front of a computer screen and watching a video or taking,
Well,
lessons.
we can back that up with empirical evidence because Michael and I just did a project, and depending on when we release these episodes, right, Michael, all the students talking
Yeah.
about how the thing they really appreciated was having that professor being their mentor, being their
Mhm.
tutor, rather than just talking to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, which in fairness can give everybody a personalized tutor, but the Wake Forest students especially said we appreciate that in-person human interaction. Right? We heard that from
Yeah.
almost every single student we talked
Yeah,
to.
I would say almost every single one, and I was shocked at how much we heard it for sure.
So yeah, the value proposition for professors is not going away, no matter how much the media wants to say that higher education is dead. I think professors are still going strong.
And educational, like academic institutions. I still think that the environment and the physical space is also critically important.
Yeah, there's like a total I can't think of the word like right now, it just slipped my mind. But there is something about like having like not like the responsibility, but accountability, I guess. Because like technically anybody could go learn all different types of things that they want at home or online or maybe even with AI. But like without a coach or accountability and all that, are you really going to? So yeah, I agree with what Ryan said completely. I'm actually curious. So you've really embraced AI, especially for business and in the classroom. Are there any areas where you refuse to implement AI that you just do totally push back on?
I don't put my kids' pictures in. That's probably the only limit at this point that I have for myself. I don't think my imagination has come up yet with enough fringe use cases to really
Yeah,
push the boundary of what am I comfortable with, am I not. Um,
yeah,
I I have no problem searching for those boundaries, right? Trying to
yeah,
come up with some of those use cases that make me question, am I okay with this? Am I not okay with this?
yeah,
Um, so far, the only thing, like I said, is I don't put my kids' faces into it.
yeah,
Yeah, that just seems a little bit
yeah,
too. I also don't put them online, so that's also.
yeah.
Mhm.
I think there's just too much out there.
Well,
That's that's
as
happening.
a marketing person who does, some creativity, do you use it for anything with your own personality, like writing emails?
Yeah, I try to, but it's never good enough. And that's
Yeah.
where, if I mean, I can't even tell you, at least once a week do I fall down the rabbit hole of trying to create my voice
Mm,
via AI, like my tone.
yeah.
I want the writing tone to be there. If nothing else, if not to create content on my behalf, um, it is fully just so that way it sounds more like I'm talking to myself, which I guess is probably a little, self-centered. And I don't want to call it say narcissistic because that has a lot of negative connotation to it.
When we do the episode on companion apps, we'll have you back to the.
But it's like I want a partner, an AI partner that sounds more human than not, just in terms of my own personal user experience. So I try very much so, but I just have not been able to get it to the point of actually sounding like me. Um, and so I haven't actually sent any emails that
Okay.
are AI generated.
It's interesting you said you want an AI partner that sounds more human because I want some human partners that are more like AI and more sycophantic
Yeah,
and will tell me that I'm right all the time.
yeah,
I just can't get the humans to do
the
that.
grass is always greener on the other side. It still holds true because I definitely agree. There's been times where you're locked in a conversation with somebody and you just so badly want to hit the pause button, right? Like stop replying. Um, and so that way you can continue on with kind of, can you just agree with me?
I say that to Michael all the time.
I love it. No, I do try to use AI. It's not perfect because again, like
Mhm.
accountability, like I take ownership for whatever I generate. Um, so I have certain quality standards that I expect using AI to create more than you do on your own.
It's a fantastic place to end. Thank you, Elise. This has been a truly mind blowing episode. And I think you have really shown us your marketing prowess by suggesting about 8 different ways that you're going to come back
Well,
after next semester and tell us more about your class. So
get rid of me. That's the problem. Third host. Here we go.
we have in real time upgraded Deeks.ai.
Oh,
There we go.
well, thank you. I appreciate it. This was fun. You guys are awesome.
Thanks again to our guests, and thanks for listening to the Deeks.ai podcast. Please continue to follow the AI discussion by subscribing on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. And if you have any comments, questions, or want to join the discussion, please email us at deeks.ai@wfu.edu.